setting.
Yeah.
U.S. adults, the holiness of God. Are you ready for this? Okay.
Ready.
Even the smallest sin deserves eternal damnation.
Well,
What do you think about that? Do you agree with James in James chapter 2? Whosoever shall keep the whole law and yet stumble in one point, he is guilty of all. Keep the whole law, stumble in one point, guilty of the whole thing. That's what James says. Well, American evangelicals, they found that even the smallest sin deserves eternal damnation. 23% agreed. Great job, 23%. Versus 69% disagree. 69% of American evangelicals do not believe that ultimately sin separates us from God.
Again, there's the first question we read, we think that we offer something.
Right. Yeah. That there's something good within us, that we can produce our own righteousness.
Statement number 20, worshiping alone or with one's family is a valid replacement for regularly attending church.
I am so glad they asked this question.
Yeah.
That's where all the satellite campuses come into play.
So glad they asked this question.
58% of American evangelicals agree in 2018 that worshiping alone or with one's family is a valid replacement for regularly attending church. So apparently they don't agree with the writer of Hebrews. It says not to forsake the gathering of yourselves together and to submit to those who are in authority over you. All those qualifications for pastors, deacons, and all that together, one another, love one another, forgive one another, all the meeting together on the first day of the week, gathering together for worship, all that, just first century weirdness.
Yeah.
Strange.
We get a lot of messages from people that are asking questions they should be asking their pastors. And I usually, you can usually tell, and I'll try to answer questions, but then I'll be like, hey, do you have a pastor? And they're like, no. Well, and then I'll send them a link that says, here's a church in your area you can go to. But like, that's where we're at, you know? And so I'm just saying this because we're not your pastors. I'm glad to help you and send you links and encourage you.
Glad to be a blessing, yes.
But I am not your pastor, and it's not possible for me to pastor you long distance.
That's right.
So just for the record.
Like a long-distance relationship.
Can I suggest this? Is there a connection between this majority of people believing that you don't need to be a part of a local church and 78% of American evangelicals thinking that Jesus was created by the Father? Is there a connection between those two things? I think there's probably a connection. Or how about this one? Statement number 30. Religious belief is a matter of personal opinion. It is not about objective truth.
Upper story.
Religious belief is a matter of personal opinion. It's not about objective truth. This isn't really true. It's just a feeling, right? 60% of American evangelicals in 2018 agree that religious belief is a matter of personal opinion. It's not about objective truth. That's powerful. That's powerful. Wow. The Bible's condemnation of homosexual behavior doesn't apply today. The Bible's condemnation of homosexual behavior doesn't apply today. American evangelicals, 2018, 44% agree. Well, it's not as bad as some of the other ones.
Middle there.
Yeah. Here we go. Abortion is a sin. 52% agree. 38% disagree. American evangelicals, professing evangelicals. Here we go. Only those who trust in Jesus Christ alone as their Savior receive God's free gift of eternal salvation. 62% of participants age 18 to 34 agree, up from 53% in 2016. Oh, there you go.
I like how there was zero not sures on this one. All the others had like a bunch of not sures. Everyone was
positive on that one.
Yeah, or negative, but...
The Bible, like all sacred writings, we'll end on this. The Bible, like all sacred writings, contains helpful accounts of ancient myths, but it's not literally true. 53% of participants, 18 to 34, agree. Wow. Higher than in 2016. So over half of evangelicals believe that, like all sacred writings, the Bible contains helpful accounts of ancient myths, but it's not literally true. And there you go, brothers and sisters.
Someone did comment and say that there's Catholics included in this number because they would consider themselves evangelicals.
Okay.
And if you you can actually pull out the Catholics and the numbers get better, but still, this is where we're at. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I know I shared this the other day, and I was like, I think this very accurately displays why our culture is where it's at.
Yeah.
Yes. Agreed. All right, guys. So let's move quickly into the next little segment here.
2 minutes left, so.
Let's just go quite fast. All right. So last week, if you guys watched the show last week, we did a little bit of a response to some gentlemen who, they did a program, a little show about us. It was apparent in watching some of the comments that they made that they weren't very clear about who we are, what we believe, and they did a follow-up video after our discussion last week. And honestly, because we're so busy with pastoral duties and speaking to the local city council and some other things, we haven't got a chance to listen to the entire hour-long video. I've only made it about 20 minutes in, and it was a difficult 20 minutes. I'll tell you that, and just because it just is clear that I think maybe on the one gentleman, Caleb, I think Caleb seems like he's more committed to trying to understand perspective than the other gentleman. It doesn't seem that he's really even concerned himself with trying to understand really our position at all, which is disheartening. So from our perspective, what we wanted to do last week is just respond a bit. I made comments last week that we don't fully understand their perspective, and we made comments related to comments that they made in the video. I even said several times, I don't want to make too many assumptions. And so what we said was, if they believe such and such, then this is what we would say in response to it. But I just wanted, at least for today's show, we're running out of time here, play some of their response just to give you somewhat of an idea of what we're dealing with when communicating with these two gentlemen. As they started off their show in response to our show, I'll just play it. This was one of the first comments that were made.
Jeff Durbin, he's a very accomplished martial artist. I think he has five black belts. And
five black belts. Wow, that's impressive. That takes a lot of dedication.
Oh man, and he was like a champion, and I watched some videos of him fighting, and I would never want to fight him with fists. That's for sure. He's very impressive. And one of the things that the guys here in the office said is that he's noticed that people who are well versed in martial arts tend to really enjoy the fight of it. Maybe not fight. Maybe that's that. But
the spar.
The sparring, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. That's
and so
fine.
it's interesting to see. It's interesting to see Durbin, kind of try to respond to this.
Now, I just want to say briefly, and I'm not going to give a lot of credence to what they're saying here. I just want to say, just the suggestion there it just bothers me, because you obviously don't know me. That my being a martial artist somehow plays into my loving to fight theological battles.
Yeah.
I can assure you that my desire to fight these theological battles is a love for God and love for my neighbor, and is not connected to my 5 black belts or my being a world champion or anything like that at all. It's not for the sport of it. Our doing these videos, this ministry itself, let me just say, is not for the sport of it. So it's a bit, disheartening to hear you guys suggest such a thing.
And I'll say too, the only reason we're even having this discussion is because they initiated a video, mischaracterizing us.
Right. So continuing on.
Even though I think that, yeah.
Okay. I wonder if he spent more time with martial arts study and practice than in the Word of God. I don't know.
Well,
we call that here at Apologia Radio a Jesus juke. So it just gives everyone just a bit of an idea of what we're dealing with these two gentlemen. Starting off the programming, talking about, we talk about how, he's a martial artist, and, they really love to spar. Martial artists just love to spar. And then, of course, the really, really low blow and just jab. I wonder if he spent more time practicing martial arts than reading his Bible. I just, it's not something I would want to do. I'll just give you my commitment on that. It's not something that I would want to do to just deliver a low blow and a jab like that. If I'm going to say something confrontational and very straightforward to you, it's going to be based off of your theological beliefs and system. I'm going to address your system. I'm not going to say, hey, this gentleman, let's say he likes to ride bikes. I'm not going to find out he likes to ride bikes and go, I'm wondering if he's reading his Bible more than he's riding his bicycle. It's just an unnecessary jab.
That's called ad hominem.
Yeah, and it just doesn't further the discussion. And honestly, I have no respect for that kind of communication.
He's certainly a brother in the Lord. I don't want to put him down. And actually, that was, I think, one of the most disappointing things of the entire.
Thank you, Caleb. Next, let's play this portion so you guys can get a little bit of a handle on what we're dealing with here. This is maybe first 20 minutes of the show. It's about 10 minutes in, and this was very, very hard to hear.
Like, not even trying to interact with that kind of realm of scholarship. And I've watched more of their videos to try to understand exactly where they're coming from in terms of their
Thank you, Caleb.
view of end times. It seems to me, and this could be, they might balk at this, and so, but from what I've understand, it almost feels like they're like they got like a post-millennial.
Well, maybe are they?
So pause
Yes.
there, Caleb. Thank you. And let me just say, it shouldn't have been. Let me just put all the cards on the table. It shouldn't have even been sort of like foggy or hazy.
Yeah.
We are hardcore pipe-hitting post-millennialist Calvinists, and that's obvious to everybody. I mean, hundreds of hours of content, videos, preaching around the world on this subject.
We get criticized for talking about it too much.
Yeah. So it's not kind of like we're post-millennialists. We are in the Puritan tradition, and like virtually everybody on this continent, early on in America, we are post-millennialists. Our patron saint, Athanasius, we are hardcore, unashamed post-millennialists, absolutely, without question. So, Caleb, thank you for taking note of that. But this was interesting.
Listen to the definition.
Yeah.
With the Dominion theologians, like the idea, and was it Gary North and Rushdoony? The idea that,
Got the
at least the
names
way I
right.
understand it, is that wealthy Christians should expand their capital, right? Expand their material possessions, because this is in fact foundational to God's kingdom in the world.
That might be the worst definition of
I
post-millennialism I've ever heard.
want to say this with as much gentleness and respect to you as I possibly can. That was one of the most embarrassing answers I have honestly ever heard of somebody trying to describe post-millennialism. It almost seems like you have never, ever studied this, never done your homework on it, and you're trying to speak publicly on it. So I just want to say, and I mean this with as much gentleness as possible, that is an embarrassingly bad answer. Caleb, good on you, trying to figure it out. Yes, we're post-millennialists, but this gentleman here next to you trying to explain post-millennialism. He even mentioned North and Rushdoony, so he knows their names.
Right.
Those, of course, are men who, they're post-millennialists. We don't necessarily agree with North and Rushdoony on everything, but I know for sure that North and Rushdoony would never define post-millennialism like you just said.
They would repudiate that.
Neither would the Puritans
Absolutely.
or anybody in church history who was post-millennial or has been post-millennial. I just want to say this with respect to you. That was an embarrassingly bad answer. I just can't imagine doing that in terms of trying to define a position and say, this is, what they believe. Wealthy Christians expanding their material possessions.
And I'll say, Caleb, if you watch this, I had a very hard time. I got 23 minutes in. I had a very hard time watching anymore after this point. When I got to that, I cringed. I was like, come on. Like you asked us when we said, please do your homework. This is exactly what we mean. No homework was done. A completely ridiculous explanation was thrown out for something, and it's not even in the same universe. And it just makes it hard for you to be credible. It makes it hard to take you guys seriously when this is
Well, I'm glad you
work
said
that's
it.
put up. Especially, I think your friend, and I can't remember his name, and I apologize. I think he even made a jab somewhere in there about being scholastic, and this is the farthest thing from that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's the point. Is it's an issue of credibility. We made a comment last week when we responded to a short bit of your video that we're not going to make too many assumptions on your beliefs. We said we defined our terms. This is what we believe. Here's what we believe, and we said if somebody is teaching A, B, or C, then this is what we would say in response to that, but not making too many assumptions on your belief. We played through some of your comments and directly responded to your comments themselves in terms of your own definitions and those sorts of things. So that's what we're trying to do. We admit that we don't know everything about you guys, and we've tried to keep our comments to a minimum in terms of if somebody is teaching this is how we would respond. But what is just so difficult to take in listening to this, and I haven't got through the whole thing yet, and I think Luke's exactly right, it really does speak to your credibility in terms of when you make comments like this, or you make jabs at me in terms of, I wonder if he's read the Bible as much as he's practiced martial arts, and you define postmillennialism as wealthy Christians expanding their capital and their wealth to expand dominion, or whatever else you said. It just goes toward your credibility. And for someone who prides themselves on being a scholastic, and I'm sure you know a lot in terms of the Greek language, all those things, I would just call you to just do better in the future in terms of a response.